Hi, HRN listeners. We're celebrating our 15th anniversary, and we have a really fun campaign and an ask for you. This 15th anniversary tour is aiming to bring you closer to unique food and music experiences in some of the most exciting cities in America. All the while, we're raising funds to support our work empowering the next generation of food systems storytellers through our fellowship programs. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and be entered into a raffle in the city of your choice to win a dinner for two at a noteworthy restaurant and tickets for two to a concert at a prominent local venue. We have incredible partners in New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Asheville, and Ardmore, Pennsylvania, who have donated a meal for two and two tickets to a concert of the winner's choice. And all donations help fund our fellowship programs, where we're helping to build essential workforce readiness skills and food system storytelling skills. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by 818 Tequila. Delicious and smooth tequila made in harmony with the earth. 818 Tequila, imported by 818 Spirits, Manhasset, New York. 40% alcohol by volume. Drink responsibly.
Hey, welcome to Beer Sessions Radio on Heritage Radio Network. It's a special recording live in the studio at Roberta's Pizza in Bushwick, Brooklyn. It's May 25th, 2022. And our good friend M. Souter, she wrote another beer book. And way back in 2018, her first illustrated beer book, we didn't get to interview her with. But now we're here with Hooray for Craft Beer with M. Souter and James Ty and Advanced Cicerone. So we got a great little show here. Let's just have everyone give a brief little intro. Em?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Jimmy. I'm M. Sauter. I'm the founder and cartoonist behind Pints and Panels. I'm also an advanced Cicerone. I work on visual beer education. So Pints and Panels focuses on teaching people about beer through cartooning, which is lots of fun. Been doing that since 2010. What else? Oh, geez. I also am an international beer judge. I do public speaking at libraries and stuff, beer tastings, work part-time at Fox Farm in Salem, Connecticut. I mean, that's, I'm everywhere all the time.
Well, you brought us back to the studio, so thanks so much.
No problem.
Em said, I want to be on Beer Sessions Radio, talk about my new book, but I want to go in person to Roberta's.
Yep.
And then James?
Yeah, James Ty, Principal Beer Acolyte, doing education and training for bars, restaurants, breweries. Just that random guy you'll see at the bar. That's pretty much it.
And you've been on the show many times, James. So I was like, Em wanted to come in person. I said, you know what? I got to have a good chance to get James back into the studio, too.
Big Pints and Panels fan. So,
shucks.
Gotta be here.
Nice. Thank you.
Let's talk about this. So, if you see it on Instagram, you know Pints and Panels if you're a beer geek. But what I love about it is that you talk about serious things, but it's a cartoon. And, there's a style and it shows some of the ingredients. Let's go way back with you. How'd you get involved in beer and how'd you become a cartoonist? Because this is the M. Sauter story today.
Oh, all right. So I went to the Center for Cartoon Studies in White River Junction, Vermont, which is a real school where you can get an MFA in cartooning. So I have my master's in fine arts in cartooning. I graduated there in 2011, and that's where I started Pints and Panels. Pints and Panels was a drawing exercise I did in 2010. Started in May of 2010, so 12 years ago. It was named by ex-boyfriend. He named it Pints and Panels. I came home, I was like, I want to review beer and do a beer website. What should I call it? And he goes, oh, you're going to call it Pints and Panels.
Love it.
And I was like, holy crap, that's the best name ever. And him and I are still friends, so I'm always like, thank you, Ryland. That's I always give him credit for coming up with that. So it was first a beer review website. I would go to the bar, buy stuff, try it, would give a star rating. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what I was talking about, but it was a great way to draw about beer, work on cartooning myself, and also try beer and learn more. And so it was a beer review website for about 8 years or so. And then in 2019, so 9 years, I switched to visual beer education, focusing on styles, hops, raw materials, brewing process. I was studying for the Master Cicerone exam, so drawing comics about it and drawing the syllabus I thought would help me. But then I was like, well, that's selfish. I shouldn't just hold it for myself. Should hold it for, give it to everyone. So I posted it on Pints and Panels for free. So if you're studying for levels 1, 2, certified beer server, certified, advanced, or master, there's free content on my website so you can learn about beer. And that's important. I want to make sure that beer education is accessible because it can be expensive. So.
No, it's really great. I mean, James, you've taken those tests and you're an established Cicerone dude.
I'm a grizzled veteran, when it comes to that. Yeah.
What do you think about this visual presentation of a beer syllabus?
Yeah, I think it's really fantastic. It's a great medium. I think that the thing about Em and her work is that it is very content rich, but it's presented in a very accessible way. So, anybody at any level that really wants to learn more about beer can really use it. It's a fabulous resource for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great.
I was actually just at Cash and Carry in Murray Hill drinking Schilling Pilsner, as you do. And the bartender behind the bar, this guy Tim, was like, I'm studying for my certified. Do you have any resources? And I was like, actually.
As a matter of fact,
I do. And he was so jazzed to learn about pints because he had never heard about it before. Learning about Pints and Panels, learning about the content. He was so excited. It made me feel very good inside. So
yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think that if you're just reading the syllabus, to see it the way you lay it out, it's great. So way back when, your first beer job. Let's catch everybody up on M's
my
side.
first beer job ever was the Beverage King in West Lebanon, New Hampshire. I worked. I sold cigarettes to single
underage people.
No. We were very good about carding and singles of Budweiser that people from the cement factory next door could drink in the parking lot before they went home. That's what I sold. But we also had a really, really great selection of. I remember when we got Firestone Walker into New Hampshire because when living in White River Junction, where I lived, is right on the border with New Hampshire. So we just would cross the border very easily. And I remember when I got Firestone Walker, my boss was like, look, we got Firestone Walker in. And I did this dance. I was like, oh my God, we got, and this is when Double Jack and Uni were in the 22-ounce bomber bottles.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, what? That's amazing. And I was so jazzed. And my boss, Rich, was just like, it's just beer. Cool it. And I was like, no, this is amazing. And I dusted all the Belgian beer that no one bought, but I made sure they looked nice. And we sold a ton of Dogfish Head, a ton of Lagunitas. There wasn't a lot of local. We sold a lot of Harpoon because we were about 20 minutes from Windsor. We had, what was it? There's Woodstock Inn, the pigs. Do you remember that, James?
I do,
The 12-pack.
It's like New Hampshire and
Vermont.
Vermont.
New Hampshire, Vermont beers. Yeah. The selection was, we mostly sold 30 packs of Jenny Cream Ale because that was the cheapest 30 rack you could buy. But it was a really great intro into beer. We sold a lot of keg beer. We sold a lot of localish, big regional stuff because this is around the time when craft beer is really starting to take off. And the bigger regionals like the Lagunitas and the Dogfish Head are kind of running it. Or I don't even think we had Dale's Pale or Oscar Blues at that time. It was just we drank so much Dogfish Head 90 Minute.
When was this?
2011.
2011.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then I moved to Oregon for a year, worked at a beer bar in Eugene, Oregon called 16 Tons, and that was a game changer. I mean, the selection we had was insane. We would make the bar at night go down to cellar temp. My boss Mike was really made sure that the beer was in prime condition all the time. We had 18 drafts. It was sat 8 people, so it was just regulars, people who came by. That was a really, really great place to just dive in head first because the Oregon beer scene in 2011 is there's beer everywhere. There's beer in bakeries. There's beer in auto mechanics. There's beer everywhere in Oregon, and I was so blown away by the Oregon scene. But after a year, I was like, the Pacific time zone stinks. Football starts at 10 in the morning. What is this? I I'm not a huge fan of that. I mean, that was really the only thing.
And I was wearing a Boston Red Sox.
I know.
hat.
I'm a huge, like, my Red Sox would play at like 4 p.m, and then I'm a New York Giants fan too. I'm one of those weird Connecticut people. So the Giants are on at 10 a.m. and I work till midnight. The bar's open till midnight. I don't get home till like 1:30. So I'd miss like the first half of all the and then it never showed any of the New York Giants games because it's, they don't care about football.
It's a different country out
Yeah,
there.
it's a whole, and they don't have white cheddar. They only have orange cheddar. What kind of place is this? I gotta leave. I gotta go back to New England. So after that, I worked at Two Roads for 5.5 years doing their communication strategies. So, and then in 2018, I left to study for the Master Cicerone exam full time. And then at that point, I started working at Fox Farm.
And at what point did you realize that the Cicerone program was good for your career?
I mean, I've always been a huge. So I got my level 1 in 2011. When I learned about the Cicerone program, I was blown away because it was new. Andrew Van Til, who was the first Master Cicerone ever, came into the bar in Eugene. And I was like, "You're Andrew Van Til. You're a Master Cicerone." And he was like, "Who the hell are you? How do you know who I am?" And we got to talk about beer. He was a super, super nice guy. He's since disappeared, and no one knows where he is or what he does.
And he's going to be our next guest.
Yeah,
in
Andrew
5
Van
minutes.
Til,
Yeah.
where are you?
Right.
Oh my gosh, hello. Rumor is he's out in the Bay Area. I don't know. Do you know where he is?
I have no clue.
I went to the 10-year anniversary party for Cicerone, and Ray Daniels was like, "Where is Andrew? Where did he go? He passed the exam." I was really proud of him, and then he worked for Imperial Beverage in Michigan for a little while, then disappeared. But, taking the it was a challenge, and I love to learn, and taking the certified, and then taking the advanced. The advanced is really hard. I really didn't think when I took the advanced that I passed. I took it in Chicago, and then after it was done, I felt like I had been hit by a truck and went to Beguile Brewing across the street by myself and stared at this beer and was like, oh my gosh, what was that? It's really tough. It's a mixture of short answer, multiple choice, essays, tasting. I mean, it really hits you over the head. And I was very lucky that I did well in the tasting portion, and then that helped me I barely passed the advance. I can admit that. You need an 80 to pass. I got an 80. So it's a really tough exam. So when I meet other advanced Cicerones like James or anyone else, I'm always just like, you're smart.
Well, it's definitely a mark. I remember it was like maybe like 8 or 10 years ago, you started realizing that the managers at certain distributors were all now certified Cicerones. Mm-hmm. I think at my old place, Jimmy's Number 43, a long time ago, Sam Merritt was hosting just Cicerone beer server courses, and certain companies with chains or liquor stores were coming in and getting their staffs. That was way back then.
Yeah.
James, for you, the advanced Cicerone, it's neat to talk about it because I remember there was a lot of people were getting certified, and then there was the masters, which was you couldn't get. Mm-hmm. But advanced, it really represents a certain amount of study and expertise. What was the hardest part of that for you, James, the advanced Cicerone?
So from personal experience, I would say that I probably didn't prepare myself as well as I should have for the brewing part of it. There's a lot of stuff that I thought, oh yeah, I'll just pull from the back of my brain. But then getting there and seeing the question from me, I realized, oh wait, I really should have boned up on this subject matter a little bit harder. But fortunately, I was able to kind of answer enough to where I was able to achieve that status, and here we are.
Who's one of the legends of Master Cicerones? I'll ask each one of you to tell me someone. Because I have one in mind, but you guys, James, tell me who's a legend in your mind.
It depends on what their expertise is. Mm. If I'm going with beer styles, I might say it's probably it's a tie between Max Baker and Gavin Harper. When they were at the top of their game, they were really on top of their styles.
What about you?
It's all about Neil Whitty. I love
someone has a personal bias.
I love Neil Whitty. If he should come on because no one knows beer keeping. Neil is a proctor, and you've taken the master.
Right.
He just sits there and smiles at you.
Or doesn't smile.
Or doesn't smile or just looks at you. And he's a really tough grader. I mean, you got to know your stuff. The first year I took it, 2018, it was changing out a U coupler, which is the Guinness coupler. And I was like, really? The U?
Did you have to do it in person, or did you have
No,
to
you
talk
have to
it through?
You have to talk it through and do it. Okay. You have to figure out what's wrong with it. And it was the U, and I was like, oh God, and I look at him and I go, really? The U coupler? Come on, man. And he just sits there and he has his clipboard and he's like, you have 10 minutes. And I was just like, oh my God. He's the nicest, sweetest, wonderful. Drink a beer with him. He's a lovely, wonderful person. At the master level, when he's the proctor, he's just smiling, looking at you, and you're like, oh my gosh, he's
Wow.
He's a tough cookie.
Master Cicerone's a personality.
He's a tough cookie. But again, outside the exam, there's no one that knows draft quality like Neil. I can talk about how much I love Neil Whitty for a very. I mean, we don't have enough time.
Let me just say, but being back here in the studio at Roberta's, thanks to M. Sauter for asking for it, I get to drink the Interboro / Roberta's, the custom house lager that is really great on a nice late spring afternoon out here in Bushwick, Brooklyn. So, wow, Master Cicerones, Advanced Cicerones. I mean, so I can go to Pints and Panels and start getting my beer education, right? It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So if you were going to take the certified, the level 1, the certified beer server, there's a full syllabus that you can get that's free, or you can buy the downloadable PDF if you want it all in one go. There's also the certified level 2, or I have the first 2 sections of the advanced / master. The advanced and master Cicerone syllabi are pretty similar. So I have styles and I have keeping and serving. I'm working on the 3rd one. I don't know if I'll ever finish the 4th and the 5th, but they're there. So again, if you want them for free, great. Look at my website. If not, you want to buy them, throw me some
amazing.
Loot. So
here we are. So I met you at Two Roads, and now I got this book. I'm loving it. Hooray for craft beer.
Thank you.
First, of course, you're a great cartoonist. And we asked to talk about that a little bit. There's actually a cartooning MFA, in case you didn't know. Mm-hmm. Like, I wish I knew about that when I was 18.
Yeah, there's a couple cartooning schools. There's the Joe Kubert School. That's in New Jersey. That's more like Marvel, DC, superhero stuff. The Center for Cartoon Studies, where I went, mostly focuses on, like, nurturing your inner style so they don't conform to any other styles. And it was... my professors were Stephen Bissett, who created Swamp Thing with Alan Moore in the early 80s. Wow. That dude is the best comics cheerleader in the world. He doesn't drink, actually. He wrote the blurb on my back for my first water. He drinks, yeah, swamp he water. Drinks, yeah. He does not, he's a teetotaler. But he was always really supportive. And when I did Pints and Panels, it was part of my thesis when I graduated. They were really, really supportive. And actually, the co-founder of CCS wrote a blurb for my second, Michelle Ali, and she's just the nicest lady. So.
And then when you were younger, what were some comics that inspired you?
When I was 11, I discovered Archie comics, and I loved Archie comics, even though I didn't really understand how, like, Archie got both Betty and Veronica, because he's kind of a wimp. And they're, like, way better than he is. But I really liked their misadventures, the, like, just what they, it was, and it's also, like, when you read Archie comics this was, like, early 90s, so, like, I'm, like, 1994, 1993, you would get the digest, but it would also come with all the old-timey ones from, like, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and the vintage stuff. And that was always really fun to see the creation of the characters and how they changed and that was really actually quite inspirational.
Which era did you like the most?
I really liked, like 70s, 70s Archie, or like when they have Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Those are really nice. I like Josie and the Pussycats as well. There's a lot of really great, strong female characters in Archie. Betty and Veronica are their own people. Yeah, they kind of like latch on to Archie in a little bit, but they also have their own stories, their own lives outside of Archie. And I always really enjoyed that aspect of it. And I really liked, I did really, really like Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And then in that time period, the TV show on with Melissa Joan Hart came out in like the mid to late 90s, and I was like really obsessed with that because I'm a girl. Because I'm a girl in the 90s.
We're going to talk about your James, Pints and Panels. I know you're a fan.
Yeah.
What do you think about if I'm working at a bar, I want to start studying for the Cicerones. What would I learn from it? Why would I check out M's stuff instead of just taking a class or something?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say, and just getting back to M's experience and the institute it shows that's kind of like the ethos of that particular institution, because like your style is so distinctive. When I'll come across something that's beer related, I'll be, oh, that's definitely M's work. And so it not only speaks to your individuality coming out, but also the success that you have in being able to kind of permeate all corners of beer, But what I will say about the actual content itself, I think M does a really great job of, again, she just touched upon that it's different tiers, so there'll be a quote unquote panel, that's a little bit more dedicated to more advanced candidates and people that might be a little bit farther ahead in their road to Cicerone or just beer knowledge. And then there's also, that same subject matter will be pretty much put in a different way that's much more introductory and just really easy to grasp onto. So it's a firm foundation on which to build upon. So I think it's a great resource.
Wow, that's great. So now back to the book. So it's Hooray for Craft Beer, and actually it was the Brewers publication and the Brewers Association.
That was a dream come true, working with them. I mean, I emailed them in 2020 and was like, hey, you ever interested in doing an illustrated book? And Christy Switzer, who's the publisher, reached out and she said, yeah, let's talk. And I went, what? Like, it was such an honor. And it was a great working experience. I mean, I put out all the content, I sent it to them, and they're like, great, no problem. I mean, they did not really edit the book at all. They were very hands-off in a very good way. It wasn't like, they were great. And then I had Stan Hieronymus as my technical editor. I also had Chris Swarzy, who was the head of competition.
What did Stan give you feedback on?
Did
you make mistakes?
Oh, of course, everyone makes mistakes. His feedback was, normally Christy would just edit the feedback into the book and show you, but not really. But with my stuff, since it's illustrated, I have to edit it all myself because it's all in Photoshop. And sometimes he would just go on this like long rant about something I said about like, well, I know you mean this, but maybe it should say this, but in this, because there's one of the things I say a lot is there are a lot of right answers when it comes to beer. An American porter can be brewed 50 different ways and still become an American porter. So you kind of have to balance that with accuracy as well. And I always try to make sure that my work is as accurate as possible. When you Google something, like what's the difference between an ale and a lager? Most of the things that are going to come up are wrong. And that stresses me out a lot because people are Googling and they want to learn about beer. And then what they find out is wrong or inaccurate. And then they perpetuate that further and further. And then it keeps it's awful. Don't like it. And so I wanted to make sure that this book was as accurate as possible. And Pints and Panels itself is as accurate as possible. I actually had a really good email. And anytime you see something that's not accurate, I want people to email me and say, hey, so yesterday I posted how to change a keg. And the guy was like, hey, you're missing a step. You don't say to pull the tap out before you lift or turn. Like you want to disengage it. And he's like, you need an arrow for that. And I was like, oh, you know what? I thought I had put it in, but I hadn't. Thank you very much. And I will change that. So I'm always looking for feedback. I'm never going to double down and be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Because that's silly.
So here, Hooray for Craft Beer. Okay. So it starts with history, which I love. I mean, every beer book seems to cover like the basics of beer. But when you get to history, I love it. It's like 9,000 years ago.
Yeah.
What was happening? People were settling down and had agriculture, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we have agriculture. They have it for food, but they also wanted it for beer. So, I mean, and they don't even really know if it's 9,000. No one was around back then writing it down for the most part. So a lot of it is hearsay, but that's what they think. And I read Patrick McGovern's Uncorking the Past, and that's a really great drinks history book because that man knows if anyone's gonna talk about beer history, it's gonna be him. He works for the University of Pennsylvania, correct? Yeah,
That's what I was gonna ask you. Was some of the sources that you relied on?
Yeah, that was a big one for history. Tasting Beer by Randy Mosher is my just go-to. I love that book. I think that book is, if you're going to read one beer book, Tasting Beer, especially the second edition, that's the one. I also have the second edition of the Beer Bible by Jeff Allworth, because Jeff is very thorough, just a stand-up guy.
Oh, yeah.
Love that man to death. I'm trying to think of what else I read. There's a fair amount. There is a bibliography, so I was proud of myself with that. How to Brew by John Palmer is a good just reference. I mean, that is a homebrew book, but if you're wanting to learn about brewing in general, I mean, that book is dense, but it's the best.
So this is like all the little really expert knowledge that's out there for when you're studying for like advanced Cicerone. You kind of took the best bits and pieces.
Yeah,
and put it in your book.
That's what I tried to take the greatest hits and about beer and distill it into an introductory beer 102 type book for people who love beer, people who are studying. This is a really good book for level 1, level 2, certified beer server, or BJCP. Learning about I use the BJCP style guide a lot. I know it differs from the Brewers Associations. That's what big conversation that we had, where they call beer styles different things, the Brewers Association versus the BJCP. And I kind of was like, can we use the BJCP? And they were like, yeah, sure, okay, no big deal, because like that's what people call the beer. So
yeah,
they were very hands off. They had great suggestions, and it was a really, really fun book to do. It took about 8 months or so.
But that's a good point. James, do you know why are the BJCP style guidelines different from the Brewers Association guidelines? Does BJCP lead?
We actually had, I don't know if you remember, we had this conversation with Chris Swersey
a
couple of years ago, when we did something very similar to where we are today. I don't remember what the answer was with Chris, but I did ask whether at some point there was going to be a more conscientious effort to kind of align the two. I mean, it's kind of starting to find a little bit of that. I think it's just an organic thing, to be honest with you. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that?
Well, the Brewers Association guidelines are also edited yearly, whereas the Brewers Association guidelines are edited usually every 4 years or so. 5, I think 6 actually was the last, because it was 2015, now it's 2021. And the Brewers Association also does I had a conversation with someone at the BA a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, about their
Brewers Association.
Yeah, the Brewers Association, about their IBU level for their New England IPA, because I was like, it's too high. Why would it be like 60 IBUs? That's too high. And the guy was like, really? That's fascinating. And they would send surveys out where they would say, hey, can you tell us about your beer styles? Tell us how it's made. Tell us the bitterness level, the sweetness, the ABV, the color. And so they would try to change it every year. So it did change. It also changes based on the amount of entries they get as well for the Great American Beer Festival. So although there's Dutch style Coit is in there still. So I don't know a brewery that makes that style or
But money rides on it. So the Brewer Association, winning those medals at GABF.
Sure.
Is sales. It's big money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, back to your history. So
okay.
9,000 years ago, settling for agriculture and
yep.
a little bit of grain and bread and beer. I like that you mentioned bread and beer together. But 3,000 years ago, you mentioned alcohol taxation. I love what you've picked out of this history.
I mean, one of the first written things that they found is Sumerian beer tavern laws. Cuneiform tablets that say, hey, you're allowed to charge X amount for this beer and X amount for this, and then their recipes, this is how it's made. So, beer is one of the first things that's taxed. I mean, there's a lot of firsts in beer. I love how the first trademark ever is the Bass Triangle. The first trademark ever. In the world is the Bass Triangle.
James, I know you knew that, right?
Oh, I knew that. And did you know that beer was pretty much what founded statistics as we know it today?
Really?
Yeah, the T-test was invented by the Guinness Brewery.
What's the T-test?
It's a statistical tool that's being used.
But for what?
Statistics.
There's some numbers.
Yeah, it was so long. I'm sorry, I don't even remember the T-test. But
no, this is good thinking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty interesting how beer really fuels a lot of technology. Refrigeration, a lot of stuff like that is because of beer. Microbiology, yeast. Pasteur wrote articles about beer. Beer's very, very important to humanity. It's fun.
And then next on page 14, he said, I'm saying this because I only got to page 14. Beer is good for you. That's what I took from you said it's a great source of nutrition.
Well, don't chug like a 30 pack of Budweiser. That's, everything in moderation. Beer has a lot of B vitamins. I'm in the context that you're bringing up is it was given to the people who built the pyramids because it was a good source of nutrition for the Egyptian people. It's calories, it's fuel that you need. Saison, farmers working in the fields drink Saison. Actually, one of the things that I do is when I'm at Fox Farm and I'm hungry, I have a beer snack, 4 ounces of, some kind of beer. And it's a nice, it gives you some sense of nutrition and food. You're not chugging, as long as you're not putting the keg tap to your mouth, beer can be really good for you. A lot of runners drink it after running. There's non-alcoholic beer now. That is,
It's hydration.
Yeah.
Actually, a friend of mine, a surgeon, had told me years ago, he said that basically, beer does provide a lot of things like electrolytes after you've been working out or working outdoors. And he said, I'm not saying it's true, but he said that Gatorade, the formula for Gatorade was based on the chemistry of beer.
That I have never heard before.
Never heard that before, but that was a surgeon. So.
But I like that.
Yeah, so if we're drinking Gatorade, we might as well drink beer. You're out. How many people are drinking beer when they're cutting the grass? And I don't mean riding on the cart, but actually sweating and doing yard work. And
there's nothing like doing work and at Fox Farm, there's no air conditioning, so it gets quite hot there in the summer. So after, working, I do a lot of curbside delivery, building pallets, working in the tasting room. There's nothing like an ice cold beer after working out and doing some hard labor. There's nothing.
James, you got a story for us about that?
The only thing that I have to add with beer and quote unquote good for you is the fact that beer yeast is actually high in nutrients, and it's very, very healthy for you. In moderation, of course. There are purines in the yeast, which if taken too much, it'll give you gout. But moderation.
I know you can't, in marketing, alcohol producers can't say that, but we can say that.
Yeah, we're not putting anything to the Tax and Trade Bureau. So, but yeah, it is illegal to say this is good for you. Guinness is good for you. You could never do that ad now. That is 100% in America. That's 100% illegal.
Yeah. Another, you did also, of course, mention women, the main brewers and bakers throughout much of history.
Yes.
You want to go there? Because it's true, right?
A lot of before guilds, brewing in the Middle Ages, especially, is a household chore. The men are out farming and women are, making beer, and they're either going to sell it if they're alewives or they can trade it to neighbors for, other things like food and whatnot. So it falls under kind of a household chore. But yeah, no, women were, in Sumerian times, Egyptian times, men and women would work together. The women would bake the bread, the men would brew the beer because it was more of industrial. So, it's nice to see more women brewers now because after the Industrial Revolution, women still worked. I gave a talk about women in beer, and Guinness employed a lot of women in their administration. They would do, or even keg washing. So women had a place in brewing, just with porter brewing and guilds. A lot of women were excluded from guild and trade unions, stuff like that. So they got kind of pushed out that way.
Wow. We're off to a great start. We're talking with Em Sauter about her new book, Hooray for Craft Beer. We'll be back in a few minutes on Beer Sessions Radio. All right.
I'm Chava Periban, co-host of Agave Road Trip on HRN, here to talk about 818 Tequila. 818 creates their tequila using traditional methods at a family-owned and operated distillery in Jalisco, Mexico. From the blue agave they grow to their recycled glass bottle, 818 emphasizes the earth's importance in all they do. Their distillery runs on biomass and solar power, which means they don't rely as much on fossil fuels and are able to reduce their carbon footprint. Their labels, corks, and boxes are all certified by the Forest Stewardship Council as coming from sustainably managed forests. 818 is a proud member of 1% for the Planet, through which they support HRN as well as Sacred, my organization in Jalisco, where together we transform agave byproducts and water waste into adobe bricks that are donated to local infrastructure projects, like a local library in Zapotitlan de Vadillo. Visit drink818.com to learn more about their sustainability efforts and find 818 near you. 818 has been part of so many magical nights for me, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. 818 Tequila, imported by 818 Spirits, Manhasset, New York. 40% alcohol by volume. Drink responsibly.
Hey, welcome back to Beer Sessions Radio on Heritage Radio Network. It's so great being back in the studio at Roberta's Pizza in Bushwick, Brooklyn. And thanks to M. Souter, our friend from Pints and Panels, the author of Hooray for Craft Beer, who requested that we do this in studio. So we got our asses out here, excuse me, but we did. And we'll do more in studio shows this year. Thank you, M. So Pints and Panels, Hooray for Craft Beer. I think if I say Pints and Panels, everyone who listens probably knows that. But Hooray for Craft Beer, it's a cool title, but it's just such a great book. I really get it when you do your cartoons and you're explaining beer. What about the more complex? I'm gonna ask James because James is our advanced sister on here too. Some of the subjects like off flavors and dimethyl sulfide, all these things, they're pretty complicated, aren't they? I still don't quite understand them all.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly very complicated. The source, troubleshooting, the actual flavor profile that it gives off, the aromatics, that's all in there, and it's a great resource. You get to go back because there are times when I personally know I'll forget. Oh wait, what were the causes of this again? And it's Pints and Panels. It's really good to kind of go back because Em lays it out really in a great visual and easily accessible way. And so it's like it really kind of like snaps things back. And even if I'm learning about it for the first time, because there's things that I pick up too.
Yeah, and then Emily, your style's really evolved, hasn't it?
I mean, to me, it still looks like I'm like 17. Like it doesn't feel like I've drawn more. I draw a lot of foods now. Beer and food pairings are more popular. I've been doing that. So I've been drawing more, but to me, I still feel like I'm drawing like I'm 17, like in my bedroom, like doodling and stuff. Or doodling in my margins in high school. But it's fun to see the art, the way like it's, I flipped through that book and I'm just so proud of the response that people really like it. It looks nice. They did a good job. I like the paper, the way that the paper feels. It's nice, like smooth. Oh, it makes me so happy. That's such a weird nerd thing to say, but
oh, it's great. It's great that you can be in the world of beer and the world of cartooning too. It's actually very encouraging, that what you're doing. Hey, so I knew you used to work at Two Roads.
I did,
Connecticut.
yes. Mm-hmm.
And now you came in today and told me about a brewery that I've been dying to hang out with. Tell us about your new job.
So for the past 4 years, so when I started studying for the master full-time in 2018, I met Zach Adams, Memorial Day weekend, wrong holiday. And he opened some beers for me. Super nice guy. I wrote him a thank you note. I said, thank you for the beers. Got a response back that was saying, hey, do you want a job? And we just need someone a couple days a week in the tasting room to help out, do some bottling, do some canning, this and that. Met with his wife, Laura. They live behind the brewery, but they're now 3 small. They had 2 children at the time. Now they have 3. And they're just such great, down-to-earth.
Beer makes babies.
Yeah, really nice people. And I started working there just in their tasting room, helping out where I can. And it's really enjoyable. The crowd, we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. We're in Salem, Connecticut. It's 45 minutes actually from where I live. So it's a little bit of a haul, but it's worth the drive. We do have a pour limit. When I started working there, it was 2 full pours, so 24 ounces total. Or now...
You mean like the state has a limit?
No. We're the only brewery actually in the state that does that. Mostly because you have to drive there and our parking lot is not very large, keeps kind of
see.
for turnover's sake. And then I don't really want, my joke is we're a barn, not a bar. So if you want to keep drinking, there's a great pizza place called Two Brothers down the street. You can go there, and Nico, the owner, will cut you off, and can be scary. So that's my, like, you want to keep drinking, that's fine, but you're going to get cut off by Nico, and he's not going to be as nice as I am. He's a very large gentleman, super nice until you cross him. So it's a really great chill vibe, great family friendly place, nice outdoor seating. Pre-COVID, we had a kids play area. Now, not so much, just because kids touching stuff and whatnot. We have reservations, so if you want to come, you can make a reservation with us. You get 90 minutes, and now we do three full pours. It's a chill vibe. We're not a bustling line. When you go to a brewery on a Saturday afternoon and it's like elbow to elbow. I mean, that's not what we're crafting here.
You made my day. You took out of your bag. You said you had a gift for me, and it was a little over 2 years ago. I was in Boston at Road 34, and Susie Hayes is the manager there, and she had a couple Fox Farms on draft. That was the first time I'd ever heard of Fox Farm. I love them, and I've been seeing them a lot in, like, our buddy Kevin at Casket Beer is getting a lot of Fox Farm as well. James, have you had Fox Farm before?
I have. I think I feel the way everybody else does about the brewery. Really fantastic stuff.
Yeah. So let's taste this beer and talk about it, because
sure.
This is exciting. I like books, but I like books about beer. I like drinking beer, too.
I haven't had this yet, actually, because it's only available. It just came out last week, so we have a new spontaneous program that started last year that Zach and our brewer, Dan, have been cultivating. Dan was hired from DeGard Brewing in Tillamook, Oregon, big spontaneous fermentation brewery out there. He came over to help us with our program. We build a special barn just for our mixed fermentation and spontaneous program that is nice thick walls, thick roof, temperature controlled, because the barn is a cinder block. It's a cinder block barn that was built in the 1960s for some cows. So it's very hot in the summer and very cold in the winter. So we were keeping our barrels in an old garage with an AC unit. So now we have this beautiful new barn called the Barrel. We call it the Barrel Barn. And it's just for production. We have a cool ship. So this sat in the cool ship and then was aged in Muscat barrels. I have not had it yet. There's probably more information on the bottle about it. But it was released last week, and the people have been really excited about our spontaneous program. The stuff coming out of there is
James,
really
you want to
good.
give it a taste? Mind if I grab that?
Yeah,
Thank
of course.
you. And
It smells so good.
yeah, so look, Advanced Cicerones, guide us through how we taste. So, and I saw that in your book too, at the beginning of Hooray for Craft Beer. It's like, so we're in Hooray for Craft Beer. What's my intro to smelling and tasting?
Usually I give it a look first. Is it cloudy? This is a little cloudy because we've been jostling, that bottle's been jostled in my backpack for like many hours. Then normally when you get ready to taste, you want to swirl it counterclockwise at a 45 like RPM, like you're talking about vinyl, just to kind of set your mind, know you're going to drink, also build up the foam. And then you can do it the whole, like, and then I usually, when we're not, do like a short sniff, put your nose in there, and then do a long sniff, 2 big sniffs, and then think about what you're smelling. Be conscious about it. This is beer. It's important.
And then you start saying, well, this glass was also serving water.
It's a...
Am I smelling the beer or am I smelling the
It's a jelly jar,
glass?
but it's fine. I love drinking out of jelly jars. I think that they're one of the best conveyances for beer. And then when you taste the beer, you'll let it warm up a little on your tongue, get the flavor, and then when you swallow, you blow out through your nose.
I agree. I like the jelly jar too.
I'm a big jelly
jar. I
jar.
like the size. I don't know how many ounces this is.
It's usually, my husband and I will share 16-ounce cans. I love 16-ounce cans for sharing. And this is usually about 8 ounces or so. So it's a great splitter.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. I love drinking smaller. Years ago we talked a lot about why American pint glasses, mixing glasses are not the right vessel for beer. And many people had really fancy glasses. But this is such a simple thing. It's also the size. Mm-hmm. There's something about when you pour more than 8 ounces to me, at the end it's not the same. The temperature, whatever. James is Am I onto something?
Yeah, and
I like small pours.
yeah, small pours are great, and I think it's also correlated with the style of beer that you're having, and I think that kind of talks about attenuation body. Obviously, alcohol is a big part of it too. So, certainly drinking a beer that we have in our hands right now is probably not conducive to anything bigger than I'd say 14 ounces. But there are other styles, which it does behoove you to have a larger glass. So,
Nice stein of, or a Seidel or Moskrug of Helles, liter, nothing like that. That's a quart essentially, but there's something about a big pour of golden lager that's also really nice. But when you're just at home, you're sharing, you're trying stuff. That's this is a great size.
Yeah, agreed. It's also a very complex beer too, and so like small sips and really kind of take it in. This is the focus of the conversation in many ways.
Wow. What did we not talk about? I mean, this book is really cool, and
there's actually in that book there's a nod to Fox Farm in the tasting room section. I drew our tasting room and a bunch of our employees, including Zach, the owner. He's wearing a baby Bjorn, and little baby Nora, who's the youngest, is in it, including our brewer Al, a couple other my coworkers.
there is a whole section on glassware too.
There is,
chalice,
yeah.
a stange. What the hell is a stange?
It's the German word for stick, and it's for Kolsch beers and alt beers.
Tumbler, Irish tulip, snifter, thistle. That's one I didn't know people were using anymore.
I will say I have not seen a thistle in a really long time, but I just really like that glass. I think it's.
I was saying one of my favorites I used to get through Be United was the Willy Becker. Mm-hmm. What's that? The 0.5 liter, like the German glass. It's a thinner glass.
So I do a fair amount of glassware now in the Pints and Panels store, and my default glass is the Willy Becker. I love that's what we use at Fox Farm too. We have a 14 ounce, I think it's a 0.4 liter Willy Becker, and it's just. That's just a great beer glass. I also love a mug. A mug is... I have some really great vintage mugs that definitely aren't for beer. But they're really great. Like I have a really great... My aunt lived in Switzerland for a while when she was a kid, so she gave me all her old beer glassware, including some now defunct Swiss lager breweries, and they're all mugs. And that's a hell of a glass. Like, I love to drink out of this glass she gave me. I don't even remember the name of the brewery on the glass, but it's just it's such a nice solid, like when you get a nice mug of beer, that's also a really nice one, especially a golden lager, especially like 17 ounces, so a half liter.
James, many years ago we talked about beer glasses.
That we did.
Is there a favorite of yours that stands out?
I love the dimple mug myself. I do consider myself somewhat of an Anglophile at heart, and so I think the Nonic pint is something that I go to a lot. And I would argue that my favorite beer style is probably like an English mild too. So
Fox Farm makes an excellent English mild.
They do, yeah,
and Best Bitter as well. And our English mild our dark mild Tidley is on nitro can, so it. There's some dark milds are hot now. It's why you told me a few years ago that everyone's gonna be talking about dark mild. I would have laughed, but I'm into it, super super into it.
No, we're down with that little color. But for me, Willy Becker, I'll tell you that Willy Becker style glass, I'll go with that anytime. And it's so great to see what you've put in this book and the process of selection. There's beer slang here too. What's a mule?
Oh, a mule is when we see that a lot at Fox Farm where we don't really actually need mules because we don't have any. So if there's like a limit with beer, so like let's say you're at a brewery and you're only allowed to buy 2 bottles, you bring a friend or like a grand mule, so you bring your grandmother and they'll buy 2 as well, and then they'll give you the 2 as well. So you mule them kind of like a pack mule. It was actually Dr. J, who works for the Brewers Association. She does a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion stuff. She's phenomenal. She was the one that suggested beer slang, and I was like, Dr. J, yes. That was a really fun couple pages to do. Because there's a lot of like, if you're not knowing, if you're just entering the beer world and you look at some of these Instagram accounts or like, there's a lot of stuff there where you're like, I don't, this is English, but I don't understand. So the slang section was important to add. And I'm really glad that she mentioned that. I should add it.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I'm an old timer. And so some of these slang words I had to look up myself, to be honest with you. Yeah. Very helpful.
James. And so I'm on the tasting room tips and tricks. So that illustration is of Fox Farm.
That's our tasting room, yes.
So it's pretty great. I mean, honestly, it says get chatty. It's the rules have changed in tap rooms, right? I mean, a long time ago, it was like, I remember Brooklyn Brewery in the late, early 2000s. You had to get a token to get a certain size. Couldn't even buy a pint of beer. So Fox Farm is like the new era of brewery tap rooms. It's not like going back to some other licensing. What is the key of the Fox Farm besides the beer? Like, what's the vibe that you try to capture?
The thing I love about tasting rooms now, and Fox Farm does it really well, is it has this kind of pub vibe that English pubs have, where it's a meeting place. You're going to this place to meet friends. We have the Fox Farm 4. It's these 4 older gentlemen, and they meet every Thursday and Sunday at the brewery and drink Pilsner. And in the winter, they have a special table they sit at. And in the summer, they sit outside the barrel barn. And they just chat, and they're just friends, and they're just meeting up. And they've got a schedule and a routine, and they love to come and talk. They're the nicest, sweetest gentlemen. When my book came out, they all pulled me aside, and they were like, we just want to let you know we're really proud of you. And I was like, oh my gosh, guys, that is, like, they're just good people. And that's the thing about the tasting room is it brings out good people, regulars, people who just want to enjoy beer. Families show up. We allow dogs outside. In Connecticut, it's a town by town. So some towns, like I live in New Britain, and our local brewery, Alvarium, is allowed to have dogs in it. There's actually a Dogs of Alvarium Instagram account. So you can see all the dogs that show up. In Salem, Connecticut, where Fox Farm is, we're not allowed dogs inside because they treat it as a manufacturing facility. But there's lots of dogs outside you can pet. There's children running around. It's a great place for kids. You can bring non-alcoholic beverages and snacks, so kids can have stuff as well. We only serve the beer that we make. We don't have a lot of breweries in Connecticut. I'll have wine or guest taps. We don't do that. And it's just a really nice, chill, relaxed place where people want to come and experience a nice pastoral setting. It is quite rural. People bring nice. There's a really nice regular. This guy Sandy. It came with a buddy of his, and he just brought 2 camping chairs, and they sat under the big tree in the front, and drank pilsners and had a nice conversation. I went over and I was like, "This is beautiful. What you have right now.
Let's go to the brewery.
Yeah, let's go to the brewery and spend time together. Let's hang out. Let's bring some snacks. Let's bring a lunch. Let's go to." There's a really great sandwich place in Salem called Salem Prime Cuts. It's also a butcher, so they make their own bacon. It's the best bacon I've ever had in my life. And their sandwiches are unbelievable. Anything with bacon on it. And you get one of their sandwiches, you bring it to the brewery, get a beer, sit outside. It's just a really great, great place.
Wow. Can you tell? So this is Fox Farm. What's the label on this beer?
So this is the Ultra Volta, and we made it in 2 versions. So this is the Muscat version, so it was aged in Muscat barrels, and then the other half was aged in Pinot barrels. And so it's a goose, so it's a 3-year blend aged in Muscat. So they've been making this for a while, and we've only been open for 5 years, so this is 2 years in. But yeah, it says, just as our first 3-year blend of lambic-inspired spontaneous beer was coming together, we took a receipt of a freshly emptied and uniquely characterful barrels from France. For this encore presentation of the blend, we finished Triolet. So Triolet is our goose in Muscat casks. So it's our goose in Muscat.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, James or Em, do you have a question for either or the other? We're going to wrap it up soon.
Oh, boy.
Stumped.
Yeah. I want to know if James is going to take the master again.
Oh, gosh. So to answer M, I do have a seat for the master exam in 3 weeks. Chicago. I mean, sorry, not Chicago. It's typically in Chicago, but this year it's going to be in Charlotte. Sugar Creek Brewing. Our good friend Joel Volkenbacher's.
Who's a master cicerone?
He's
the
he's
19th
19,
master, yeah.
Number 19, yeah. So, yeah, that's my answer.
But that's exciting. I think you're going to do really well.
Oh, you're too kind.
No, you know a lot about
Appreciate
beer, so.
You're going to read the Hooray for Craft Beer, get some pointers.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I failed the master twice, so who knows?
Yeah,
I mean,
we're not going to talk more about that because that seems to be.
It's a really tough exam. Like I helped Shane McNamara, who's the 20th. He passed last year. I helped him with some
hold
styles.
your thumb to the candle flame, and if you can do it long enough, you get to be the master cicerone, right?
I mean, there are a lot of people who take it again and again and again and don't pass. I mean, you really
That was
have
a
to.
Richard Nixon.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry. I was born in 1983, so you're.
Long one. All right, you guys are. James, any last question for Em about her book or? Find some panels.
I might be just jumping the gun, but book number 3, what should we be expecting?
There's some things are out there. We'll see if anybody, takes a chomp at it. I'd love to do a travel book. Really, really would love to do some illustrated. I've been drawing some of my favorite beer bars. I just posted I did an art drawing of Blind Tiger Ale House for my Instagram, and immediately got an email from them being like, how do we put this in our, and they bought up the poster size version, and it's going to go in the Blind Tiger. And that's
wow.
Yeah.
What size do you draw in?
So
and you sell copies of it or originals?
Yeah, no, it's all copies, because a lot of it is, so everything is hand drawn, pen and ink on 8.5 by 11 B paper. So I like this American, kind of actually very cheap paper, but I like the way that it feels. And then I scan it into Photoshop, and all the digital cleanup and coloring is done in Photoshop. And so most things are sold in 8 by 10, 11 by 14 prints on archival matte paper, really nice paper. And then I also do poster size on glossy poster paper, 16 by 20 and 18 by 24. I do cards as well, but it depends on if I'm doing infographics. If it's too small, you're going to lose the definition of it. So sometimes I usually.
But if you start doing more beer bars, then people might be able to buy those at the.
Yeah, and if you're ever like, hey, I want it in this custom size, I can size it for you, no problem. And then we can do custom sizes. That's easy. So.
I guararantee there are a lot of listeners out there that just got really excited with that
Yeah.
prospect.
Maybe
really.
I want a Blind Tiger print.
I'd love one.
The blind. Yeah, you've got Blind Tiger. I just drew like Proletariat in East Village. I drew Good Beer, which I think is like underrated place if you want to drink. If you want to drink by yourself and not be bothered. You go to Good, and I mean that in a very good way.
David Goodbeer, East 9th Street.
Yeah, I love that place. I had a really good friend who was a wine guy who used to live in New York City, Jameson Fink, who introduced me to Good Beer, because that's where he'd go to, like, I need to get away, and he would go drink a Good Beer. And I was like, that's a great place to just, like, be quiet and thoughtful about beer.
They can't use their outdoor space, so the backyard, they grow hops.
Oh, I actually think because of COVID, they can use their outdoor space.
Oh, maybe now.
Because I just drew their outdoor space for a book proposal I was doing that I actually loved so much that I turned it into a print because it looked so pastoral and pleasant. I was like, this is in the East Village. It's beautiful. It's really nice. So,
and what's your website?
pintsandpanels.com. And then social media, all at Pints and Panels. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You'll usually see me rant about the Red Sox. So in relation to beer, or not in relation to beer, but in addition to beer, that is.
Well, thanks so much. Thanks to your team at Brewers Publishing for connecting us. And thanks for dragging us back into the studio.
I know. I'm excited.
Because there are some shows that are recording here. So we're going to do more in studio this year.
Wonderful.
And at one point we'll be back with it. And James Ty, thank you so much, man, for coming in, letting your expertise and your gravitas, my friend.
Thanks for letting me be here.
Oh, yeah.
It was a pleasure.
And big shout out to our producing intern, Alex Tran, and our engineer today, Liam. Sorry, Liam, I don't know your last name. So thank you so much for joining us on Heritage Radio Network. I'm Jimmy Carboni. Catch you next time on Beer Sessions Radio. All right. Beer Sessions Radio is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.